In this lecture, we are going to see the third and fourth waves of feminism. The third and fourth waves of feminism. We've seen different kinds of feminism, from liberal to very recently socialist radical feminism. Right? In all these ideas of feminism, in all these strands of feminism, what essential idea to me everyone can see that they are against patriarchy, right? They are against patriarchy. They are trying to establish a situation whereby they are against something, right? They are against something. In this uh, endeavor of understanding feminism, in this endeavor of understanding feminism, understood two ideas as well. We understood what is existentialism and what is essentialism. On building on this foundation, building on this foundation of understanding existentialism and understanding essentialism, understood Simone de Beauvoir. We understood Simone de Beauvoir, and by this extension of understanding existentialism and understanding essentialism, we are now going to understand third wave of feminism. Third wave of feminism starts with ecofeminism. Ecofeminism. What ecofeminism does? Ecofeminism essentializes women. Ecofeminism essentialize women to womanhood. They say that they say that women are women by birth. The idea, the virtue of femininity, the virtue of womanhood is by birth. Women women are feminine by birth, right? So the existence of women, one does not become woman according to ecofeminist or ecofeminist. Woman is woman by birth. The nature of woman is feminine by birth. It, in understanding ecofeminism, you'll find two or three scholars, right? It was the ecofeminism was the term coined by, I don't know if I can pronounce it correctly, but di Bone. Francois di Bone coined this term known as ecofeminism. Then we have some people like Yenestra King, Yenestra King, Karen J. Warren, Karen J. Warren, and from India we have Vandana Shiva, Vandana Shiva, right? What do ecofeminists say about women? They say that women are essentially feminine, women are by birth feminine. Building on this, what do they say? They say that by nature are near to nature. The two natures represent very two different things, right? Women by qualities, women by virtues are near to nature, near to ecology, right? Women by birth are closer to nature, and nature, environment, ecology is women by nature, right? Bit confusing, a tongue twister type situation is here, whereby women by nature are near to nature, and nature is women by nature. Right. To explain this, I will give you one example. Women by nature are near to nature. Right. Like that women, the I don't want to essentialize women, but if Waco feminism has done it, I'll do it as well. So one of the very common hobby among UPSC aspirant, especially among women, is gardening. Right? Women like to garden. They like to take care of the balconies. They like to take care of the gardens around them. So women want to be closer to nature. Women by nature are closer to nature, and by nature by nature is woman. This means this signifies ideas like Mother Earth and Mother Earth. This is not a singular idea from Indian culture only. This idea founds place in Greek culture, whereby they calls Earth as Gaia. Gaia is Mother Earth, right? So this is what third way of ecofeminism tries to say, that women are near to nature, and nature is nature's primary nature is woman. Nature is feminine, right? Now, in this situation, where do men find their place? If women by nature are near to nature and nature is woman by nature, men are exploiters. Men are men exploit both nature and women, right? Men exploit both nature and women. Men are consumerist. Men are greedy and want to acquire as many things as possible. Women are conservationist. Women like to reuse things. Women like to use things until they are not usable. Even if they are not usable, they will recycle them. Right? Men are consumerist and women are conservationist. Right? And she says she says the Vandana Shiva, Ernest King, and Niranjan Warren, all these scholars say that environmental degradation lead to hardship of women. Right? Environmental degradation leads to hardship of women. Okay, that is why in policies of conservation of nature, women have to be the leaders. Women have to be leaders. In Agenda 21, in Sustainable Development Goals, women should be the who form agenda and who applies one who applies the one who applies the ideas as well, right? Because environmental degradation leads to hardship of women. Women should be at forefront of women should be at forefront of such policies, right? This was third way of feminism, whereby essentializes it essentializes it essentializes women it essentializes to women feminine qualities. It essentializes women to womanhood, right? Ecofeminism, that they'll talk about nature and they will talk about women. This is first. This is the first type of. This is the first type of feminism which came in third wave of feminism. that is ecofeminism. Now the next type which came in third wave of feminism was postmodern feminism. Postmodern feminism. Postmodern feminism is a very wide concept. We'll have to understand postmodern. What is postmodern first? We have actually understand what is postmodern. What is modern? Modern is conforming to rationality. Modern is science. Modern is industrial revolution. Modern is everything. Modern is everything that is post enlightenment, post rationality. Postmodern is rejection of rationality, right? Rejection of rationality. This postmodern feminism was explained, formulated, and devised by a scholar known as Judith Butler. Judith Butler. Judith Butler. Right? What is postmodernism? Postmodernism is rejection of rationality. Postmodernism have this important concept of existentialism as well. Keep existentialism idea of postmodernism in mind before reading postmodern feminism of Judith Butler. Where does Judith Butler finds her influence to write all these theories? She finds her influence in Simone de Beauvoir and Monique Witting. Monique Witting. Monique Witting. What do Simone de Beauvoir say? Do Simone de Beauvoir say and Monique Witting say about feminism? They have very existential idea of feminism, right? Simone de Beauvoir says that. What does Simone de Beauvoir say? One is born a woman, one becomes woman, right? One becomes woman. In this quote, you have to find you have to find a bad idea or misinterpretation or something which you can criticize, right? If I give you this task, one is not born a woman, one becomes woman. Find an idea which most of the contemporary feminists will be against with. They will be against with this idea that one becomes woman, right? One becomes woman. One becomes woman. This means recognizing sex and recognizing gender, right? Even though Simone de Beauvoir had a big idea of defining women to end the secondaryness of women, this becoming of woman is something which is problematic because it says that there is this category which you call women. There is something which is women, right? By accepting that there is this idea of woman, there is idea of woman which exists within sex and within gender. This idea is problematic according to contemporary feminists such as Judith Butler, such as Judith Butler. Explain this, explain this, explain that one does not become woman or there is no woman, right? There is no woman. To explain this, there is no woman. What books did Judith Butler write? She wrote Gender Trouble and she wrote Bodies matter, and she wrote Undoing Gender. What is essential idea, what is central idea to postmodern feminism is rejection of sex, rejection of gender, and acceptance of gender fluidity. When radical feminists criticize gender, when radical feminists criticize gender, accept sex as biological, right? They accept sex as biological. Postmodern feminists reject that as well. Postmodern feminists reject that as well, right? So, so understanding postmodern feminism, first keep these two things in mind. First, existentialism. Second, Simone de Beauvoir's ideas, right? And third, what is sex and what is gender according to radical feminists, whereby radical feminists say that sex is natural and radical feminists they say that gender is the issue, right? So understanding not radical feminism, but postmodern feminism, right? So question that Judith Butler starts with, that if woman is a stable category, if women is a stable category. Again, going back to Simone de Beauvoir, Judith Butler says that is there an universal idea of women, universal idea of women which applies across time and space, which applies across time and space. To understand this, to understand and explain this, that if women is a stable category and if there is an universal idea of women, what does Judith Butler say? She says that this is not true. Woman is not an stable category. Woman is not an universal idea which you are going to apply across time and space, which first wave of feminism did. What does first wave of feminism does is that it tries to it tries to take into account women across the time and space. Civil political rights for what? All women. Then Marxist feminists, what do they say? They say rejection of capitalism for emancipation of all women. This all women, all encompassing idea of women, it is criticized by postmodern feminists, whereby Judith Butler says that there is no single stable category of women. There is no universal idea of women. Why there is no single stable category of women, or why there is no universal idea of women? Because the experiences which women have are different, right? Experiences of every woman is different because their environment changes, because their religion is different, because situation might be different. I might be born in India, I might be born in Denmark, I might be born in Norway, I might be born in Middle East. Women in all these places have different idea of patriarchy and different experience to share their womanhood, right? Because these experiences are different, so there cannot be a singular category of women, right? Right. She draws her inspiration from Simone de Beauvoir. Whereby Simone de Beauvoir says that is on a woman, one becomes one. One becomes a woman. She agrees with first part that one is not born a woman. She agrees with this part that one is not born a woman. By she, I mean Judith Butler. Judith Butler agrees with this part that one is not born a woman. But this part whereby one becomes a woman is something which she have issue with. Why do why do she have issue with this part that one becomes a woman? Because she says that because of the experience that women have, there is no single idea of woman that exists. One does not become a woman, but but this is continuous. This is continuous process. One is not born a woman. One is not born a woman. There is no perfect end of woman. One does not become woman. It is a continuous cycle which continues. There is no perfect end in woman. Right? She says that process of becoming a woman, it is extraordinary, and it is extraordinary. It is very easy to understand that it is extraordinary. And process of becoming a woman is repeated in rigid regulatory framework of the heteronormative matrix. Right? Matrix. If you have seen this movie Matrix, the concept will be very easy to understand. I'll try to understand that this concept, taking that idea of matrix. Right? So till now, what we have seen, till now we have seen one is not born a woman, one becomes woman. This is what Judith Butler criticizes, and she says that one does not become woman. There is no perfect end in woman. The process is there. One can strive to become a woman, but one does not end in becoming a woman. The process continues. This process of becoming a woman, which does not have any end, first, it is extraordinary, and second, it is repeated in what she calls as rigid regulatory framework of heteronormative matrix. What is heteronormative matrix? Right? First word is hetero, second word is normative, third is matrix. Hetero, norma, matrix. What is hetero? Hetero is acceptance of different sexes. That this is a boy, this is a girl, and these are rigid, heteronomous, 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 or hetero families. Right? What does hetero mean? I will explain hetero by homosexual and heterosexual. Homosexual means, what does homosexual means? That you are in love with same sex person. What does heterosexual means? That you are in a relationship, you are in love with a different sex you have. This is what hetero means, right? Heteronormative. What does norma mean? Norma means morals, ethics, rules, and customs. All these are norms. All these are normas, right? Norms or normas, morals, ethics, rules, customs, which derives from a society which is heteronormous, which is heterosexual, right? In a society which is heteronormous, which derives its morals, ethics, rules, and customs from from a framework which only accepts his kind of relationship, this kind of love, whereby there is one boy and there is one girl, and this sexual differences is there, right? This difference between sex and gender, right? That there is one boy, there is one girl, there is no other gender, will will shape norms, will shape morals, will shape ethics, will shape rules, and will shape customs, right? In such a society whereby sex and gender is seen in dichotomy of male and female only, there is no third gender, and such a situation whereby there is no third gender, norms will be in favor of male, morals will be in favor of male, ethics will be in favor of male, rules and customs will be in favor of male. In a matrix, in such a society, women start becoming women start becoming a woman, right? A society norms are backed by this idea, and gender exists, and there are only two sexes and there are only two genders. This idea shapes the norms of the society, then that society is heteronormous, and in such society the process of becoming a woman happens. So the process of becoming a woman is first extraordinary, and it is repeated in rigid regulatory framework of heteronormative matrix, right? The second the, the second criticism that is given by Judith Butler, first is Simone de Beauvoir, whereby she says that she accepts that one is not born a woman, but she criticizes this idea that one becomes woman, right? Second criticism or second disagreement that Judith Butler has with some other feminist is with radical feminist. Radical feminist, Judith Butler criticizes radical feminist, whereby radical feminist, first thing that radical feminists say is that sex is natural, right? And they say society is gendered. This is what radical feminists are saying. Judith Butler, postmodern feminists say that sex is also sociocultural, as is gender. Radical feminists say that gender is cultural, right? Radical feminists say that sex is sociocultural, and Judith Butler say that, I'm sorry. Radical feminists say that gender is sociocultural. Judith Butler, on the other hand, say that sex is not natural, but it is sociocultural. And sex, both sex and gender are sociocultural, right? What do radical feminists say? Radical feminist core idea of radical feminist, or one of the ideas of radical feminist, is that sex is natural, gender is socioculture. Society is gendered. For postmodern feminist, for Judith Butler, both sex and gender are sociocultural. They are not natural. Natural. For postmodern feminist, sex is already gendered. Sex is already gendered, right? For them, sex is not a fact. Sex is not a fact. By fact, what do they mean? Sex is not only male or female. Sex can be transgender. We can have intersex kid, right? Sex is not limited to male or female. Sex can be transgender, and sex and there can be situation of intersect kid, right? So sex is not natural. Sex is already gendered, and sex is socio-cultural. This is what postmodern feminists say. This is what postmodern feminists say. To write this questioning of sex and questioning of gender, you can write this in a very sexy way, in a very cliched way, whereby you will write that radical feminist idea of sex and gender was epistemologically questioned by postmodern feminists, whereby postmodern feminists criticize or questions sex and gender, while radical feminists accept sex. Right? So, what we have seen till now, we have seen that one is not born a woman, one becomes woman. This statement of Simone de Beauvoir is criticized by Judith Butler, whereby she says that one does not become a woman, but the process of becoming a woman happens. She says that the process of becoming a woman is extraordinary and it is performed in this heteronormative matrix. How this process of becoming a woman is performed in is repeated in heteronormative matrix. And this idea of repetition of process of becoming a woman in heteronormative matrix, she gives this idea of performativity, performativity, right? Performativity. What do she means by performativity? She means by that is that gender is performative. Again, I'll explain this, right? I'll explain this one more time. Gender is formative. Means, what does this mean? It means that gender is not what you do, it is not what you are, what you gender is what you do, not what you are. Right? Gender is not a noun, but gender is a verb. Gender is action, right? One becomes woman. One is not becoming woman, but one is constantly in process of becoming a woman. This process of becoming a woman is gender, right? What does Judith Butler says in criticism of Simone de Beauvoir? She says that what does Simone de Beauvoir say? That one is not born a woman, one becomes woman. On the other hand, Judith Butler says that the process of becoming a woman is continually performed in heteronormative matrix. This process of becoming a woman is gender. Gender is a process, gender is a verb. You perform your gender. right? You perform your gender. What does this mean, right? I am, I am a man. I am a man. Now, the things I like to do are very manly. I like to play cricket. I like to play football. I like to do all those things which are manly or which are assumed to be manly, right? So my performance of playing video games, my performance of playing cricket, my performance of doing all things which are traditionally seen as manly, it is my performance of it is my performance of performing my gender. I am performing my gender. It is not a noun. It is a verb, right? To give a more academic example, I will give you example of breadwinning and housemaking. Housemaking is a verb. Breadwinning is a verb, right? So by performing housemaking, by taking the work of housemaking, by performing this action of housemaking, women are performing their gender. On the other hand, men by going out to work, men by breadwinning will perform their gender. So gender is performance. Gender is gender is normative, right? It is a verb. It is not a noun. You perform your manliness. You perform your womanliness. You perform your womanhood. It is a verb, not a noun. If it is a verb, not a noun, it is a action, and action, for this action, there is this assumption that there is an audience to validate the actions, right? To validate the actions. Assumption, gender is a verb, gender is an action, and traditionally there is assumption that there is an audience to validate the action, right? Again, going back to an academic example of childbirth. The action of childbirth is performance of gender. The action of childbirth is performance of gender, and by doing childbirth, you are performing to the world that you are a woman. The audience, the world will see your action and say that you are a woman because you have done the work of childbirth, right? So, gender is performative, gender is verb, gender is performance. Mm, Gender is uh, not performance, but it is. I will explain it why it is not performance, right? Gender is something what you do, not what you are. It is a verb, it is an action. And it assumes that for your action, there is an audience to validate your action. Now, there is this important concept of performativity and performance, right? Very subtle difference, very not a big difference, right? Performance is thing, right? Performativity is second nature. Performativity and performance and second nature, right? If you have seen this Tamil movie called Lakshmi, I guess, I don't remember the movie, but there is this movie whereby Vijay Sethupathi performs a role of a transgender. Right? That is performance. He's not a transgender. He's performing as a transgender. Performativity will be I am a transgender. I am living as a transgender. Right? It is a second nature for me to be a transgender. Right? This is a difference between performativity and performance. Gender is not performance. It is not acting, but it is second nature. Right? So gender is performative. Gender is performativity. Gender is a verb. Gender is a action, and gender is validated by the audience around you. Gender is performativity. Gender is not performance. Gender is not acting. Is second nature. Right? This was her concept of performativity, whereby she says that gender is performative. Gender is second nature. Gender is action. Gender is verb. Right? Now we have understood Judith Butler's postmodern idea of sex, gender, of women. Right? Now this idea of women taken ahead by herself, Judith Butler goes beyond this binary of men and women, this dichotomy of men and women, whereby Judith Butler influenced this contemporary theory, which is known as queer theory. Queer theory. What is at center of queer theory? At center of queer theory is gender fluidity. Gender fluidity. What is gender fluidity? It is it is multiplication of gender. It is multiplication of gender. Right? It is not LGBTQ IA plus. Right? LGBTQ IA plus are sexual preferences. It is going beyond he she. It is calling themselves they. Right? It is not sexual preferences, but it is going beyond idea of he and she and idea of they. It is calling yourself pronouns of they. So gender fluidity, as written by Judith Butler in her book Undoing Gender, it is multiplication of gender. It is what it is not. It is not sexual preferences. First, get this right, that it is not sexual preferences. It is not LGBTQIA plus. It is not this. This represents sexual preferences, right? It is talking about gender. It is multiplication of gender. Gender is usually seen in this binary of he or she. When people call themselves they use pronouns they. This is gender fluidity. This is gender fluidity, right? So this was gender fluidity. This was queer theory, and we have also understood performativity and performance. How gender is performative. So this was postmodern feminism. This was postmodern feminism. I hope you understood postmodern feminism and third wave of feminism, of which ecofeminism is slightly easier to understand. Postmodern feminism have some uh, some complex words. It is still easy to understand. whereby they talk about women is not fixed uh, fixed category, becomes a woman by repeating actions in heteronormative metrics. Gender is performative. Gender is performativity. Gender is not acting, but gender is second nature. You are not consciously acting your gender, but it is subconscious. It is second nature to you, right? Then we have also understood queer theory. We have also understood gender fluidity. What it is not, it is not sexual preferences of LGBTQIA plus, but instead it is idea of non-binary, idea of rejection of binary. It is use of pronouns like they. So this was postmodern feminism. From in the next lecture, we are going to see fourth wave of feminism, where we will understand what is intersectionality, what is post-feminism, right? What is post-colonial feminism? I hope this was helpful. I'll see you in in the next lecture. Thank you. Bye.